One. You're listening to the Voice of Reason. I'm Dr. Len here with my friend Francesco Garofoli. Welcome, Francesco.
Welcome, Len.
It's really nice to do this show with you. It's just nice to be with you, period, because you are so honest about how you see things, and you're so thoughtful about how you say them, that it reminds me of how much we have to learn about how to deal with people and give them information they can deal with. And with this COVID-19 thing that's going on, people are panicked and confused. They've been separated, they're being lied to. We don't really understand a lot of what's happened. And even though I'm a doctor for a lot of years, and you've been in the medical field as well, here we are trying to figure it out, and we don't have it all figured out.
It's amazing. You know, you and I read a lot. Not many people have the patience like we do to pour through 40 or 50-page reports. And that's what I've been doing in my spare time, which I don't have much of, as you are. I mean, I don't read what's on the internet for the most part in terms of news or so forth. I really like to spend my time looking at the documents that real professionals in the medical industry, researchers, are doing, because there are good people out there struggling to get a handle on this situation.
That's so right. You know, it's a shame when you see people trying so hard, and then you see information come out that's not accurate. It's misinformation, and people promoting it, and it's not really. I mean, why? What for? They're covering something up because they don't want you to know it. And then we have to sift through it. And we got some news that's really good, and it's hard to know what it is. And then there's some news that's really just trying to rile people up and get us separated. You know, it's sort of like united we stand and divided we fall.
And the divide and conquer concept has been at work for thousands of years. People think this might be something new. We see the media pushing, we see party divisions and so forth. But the fact is, we have to look at this in a real contextual way, that nothing what's happening now is really new. The details may be unique because now we have abilities to do genetic engineering, and we have abilities to deal with internet, far-reaching information flow. Throw away those details, and you're looking at a human nature dilemma that has been in place for a long time. And it's about power and it's about money, Len.
You know, I know that. And we're not going to see a revolution solve this, because in revolutions, what we do is we revolve. We get a new leader, okay, another pretty face at the helm. And then the problem is they're doing the same thing. And then there's another revolution. What we need is evolution. There needs to be some real change that makes a difference. We have to be getting away from the power side of it and the money side of it, and getting more into the sharing and giving and loving side, so that we can do something which is called form a community.
Yeah, it's true. And a lot of people feel disempowered now. I mean, sometimes I feel that way too. I mean, I feel
do
like
too.
I'm reading all this information, like the Santa Clara report from Stanford University.
Oh, yeah.
Fascinating information, real science from good people who've worked very hard with no agenda other than to find the facts, which is what you have to love about real researchers, the engineering mind. But these facts are going against everything we've been told, to a point where the fatality rate, the mortality rate of the coronavirus may be more like 0.1%.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So all of a sudden, we're starting to see an uprising of good people, average people, who thought they were disempowered, really making a difference. Now, first it's the researchers, then it's the voices outside of the mainstream media. And now what I'm starting to see, which has given me and a lot of people hope, some of the mainstream media people are asking questions.
Well,
it's very interesting.
It's about time. You know, a lot of the research is done by good people, but the problem is it gets distorted by conflicts of interest. And the other thing that happened, you know, if somebody wants it to come out a certain way, like look at somebody that's trying to promote a drug. They're coming out with a new drug that's going to solve this problem. And then they do the research, they spend $500 million on the study, and it comes out and it's no good. And so what do? They're a business. And the bottom line is what? Dollars. If you don't have the bottom line that makes money, your investors are not going to be very happy about it. So they cherry pick the information, present it in a way that's not true, and then they convince our doctors that they really got something there, and that's what they should do. Now that's the conflict of interest part. But there's also the part that has to do with how do you control all the variables? There are so many variables that you literally can't control an experiment very well. It's not an independent thing. So what we wind up with is something called an outcome study. We do a lot of different things. We get a certain result. And if it's good, we do it again. And if it's not, we don't.
And
That's the way
we're
it
left
is.
with what? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And the average person is left with sometimes a lot of confusing, conflictual information that if they don't have a propensity to look into the science, if they don't have a propensity to go more than the first page on Google, they can be left with the most dominant voice dictating what they feel.
Well, that happens to doctors too.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the time, if you tried to keep up with the literature, you couldn't. There are thousands of papers that come out every day. You can't read them all. You can't even read one and get all the information from it because you have to look at the numbers and how they did it. You have to see the raw data and what was the statistical analysis and what points were they trying to make. And you can't do it very well. So what you wind up doing as a practicing physician is you read through the paper, maybe focusing more on the abstract. And then it'll say, this is good for these reasons, and we think you should do that. And then you're up in the ICU with somebody who's sick, you're trusting that information, and we got a problem. And it's not just me saying this. There are people who are major people from the major medical journals. You know, Marcia Angel from the New England Journal of Medicine, a Harvard doctor, doing that work for 20 years, finally quit her job. And she says, I can't take this anymore. The stuff in the New England Journal of Medicine is not worthy. It's not solid science. And we need to change that. And same thing happened with the Journal of the American Medical Association, Catherine DeAngelis, who didn't quit her job, but is still coming out saying the same thing. We've got to change the way we do our research. We've got good people doing research, and then they hand it over to the people that fund it, who have an ulterior motive because they want to sell product. And then we get information we can't trust. And that number that looks at the amount of good science in medicine is shocking. The number they come up with is like 15% of what we do in medicine is based on science. And when you look at the medical research, we're looking at 1%. And that, when I saw that, I just couldn't believe it because I've been trusting the medical journals my whole life, all of my practice. It's a miracle that we do as well as we do. If you don't come from the heart and really care about people, you miss the boat a lot of the time.
And the heart is so difficult to find these days. I mean, I talk to a lot of physicians and I see how they get barraged with the pharmaceutical company machine. And sure, the pharmaceutical companies have done really great things. There are good drugs that have kept a lot of people alive.
Of course.
But people like my mom are on 20 powerful meds a day. My dad
Wow.
is on 9 powerful meds a day. These are just not your run-of-the-mill little things that are helping your body. These are powerful medications, pharmaceutically prescribed by physicians that have a litany of
I
side
know.
effects that are so scary.
I know that.
So now, why would a doctor prescribe something that is almost like a poison, but it's difficult. It's a difficult choice. You want to help your patient. And same thing with this COVID situation. We want to help people, but they're getting misinformation and partial information with lots of influence by big companies. We know Big Pharma is spending almost $1 million. This is very hard for people to comprehend. $1 million a year per congressman on Capitol Hill.
Oh, that's right.
All
They
right.
send an average of about 6 people to each congressman. And you know, they spend about $60,000 a year on every doctor. $60,000 a year. You wonder why the prices are so high. But it works. And we spend $5 billion a year on direct-to-consumer ads. And there are only 2 countries in the world that allow it, us and New Zealand. The rest have banned it.
Exactly. You can travel around the world like I do, and you don't see what we see in America. So Americans think what we see is what happens everywhere. It's not true. We have a great country. I love America. I'm proud to be an American, but I'm not proud of what I've been seeing happen. And this is because Congress has allowed it, right? There are laws that allow things, and there's laws that disallow things. The laws that allow the kind of pharmaceutical ads that misinform people.
That's right. Well,
is unconscionable.
it's the same thing with COVID-19. You don't know what to believe. And so to me, it makes me so sad to know that I have to work so hard and you work so hard to try and understand what's happening. And then you find out that it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. We talk about what happened in January, where we had a few cases that came out, and the president said, "Oh, it'll pass, don't worry." And I thought the same thing. In fact, I thought that before he said it, because it was, like the epidemics of the past, the SARS and the MERS and the swine flu things. They weren't huge things, and this should have been the same, but it wasn't. And then all this information came out. Well, maybe they did something to the virus. Maybe they manufactured a virus, and now people are talking about, well, maybe it's a bioweapon. And then it changes everything, because everything you knew about what was happening, now you can throw it out the window. And so Trump got himself in trouble from the point of view that it didn't come out the way he thought it would, as so many doctors did. And here we are now, where he's looking not so good in the press. But I think he did the right thing, as he did it the way he did. And everybody says, well, he didn't do it soon enough. Well, how would he know? And where was he getting information from? It's the experts in the world. It's a system. We need to evolve.
Yeah. And now we're starting to see that the information wasn't really what we thought it was.
That's
So
right.
what we're looking at now, 4 months later, 3 months later, is actually very different, much more in line with, I think, what the president had intuited. A lot of people don't like Trump, and I'm
Well,
like,
he's got a lot of qualities that they're hard to live with.
yeah, but he is in a lot of ways an average person. I think what's happening, he's got caught up in a bigger machine than he probably ever realized that was out there.
I'm sure that's true.
And there's, I read things that make me sad and crazy. Like, how in the world did Bill Gates fund a Johns Hopkins conference on coronavirus in October of 2019, Len? Why isn't that in the news? Of course, MSNBC is Microsoft NBC.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
you're not going to see it on big media, but I had to read it several places to really get it through my thick head. Why in the world did Bill Gates and his foundation fund a Johns Hopkins conference on coronavirus before the Wuhan outbreak by 2 months?
Right.
Can you explain that to me, Len? I don't understand.
Yeah, no, well, nobody understands. I mean, it makes you wonder. And then when you start wondering, people say, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Well, I hate those words, are so charged. That's not conspiracy theorism. What that is just common sense. You look at what happened and you try and put two and two together. And if it's something that people don't like to hear, then you're a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, a conspiracy to me is when you put together information that is conjecture. And I get this conjecture and this conjecture, and I put it together, and I come up with a
It's not acceptable.
It's not logical. It's not Aristotelian logic, right? But what happens here is we're looking at fact. So if I look at, why is Johns Hopkins so vetted in this process? Why is Bill Gates so vetted in this process? These are facts.
Yeah.
You can't not make the connection. And this makes a lot of people crazy.
So what news is talking about that? Nothing I see on television, and nothing much I'm reading about. When I go to the internet, it's all over the place. And then you hear a lot of people who say it in ways that's so aggressive that it makes you not want to listen to them. But the soft approach to the voice of reason that looks over these things and says, look, we got a problem here. We need to deal with it.
All I want for us to do, you and me, is to bring up ideas for people to go farther if they want, but mostly to remind the viewers not to get caught up in the fear machine, because that's what breaks you down. Not only does it break your immune system down, but it breaks your faith down, breaks your heart connection down, and then you become a victim. When you're a victim, you start listening to things that are not reasonable. And I think this is where people get off balance. But we're starting to see more and more people get strong now and realize this isn't the pandemic disaster that we were told it was. So that could hopefully bring your fear down a little bit.
Yeah, a little. I mean, we're seeing a lot of people die, and that's wrong. But it may be for reasons that are different than what we think. So I think we got to keep a voice of reason here. And
No,
we need to pay attention to what's happening in the news and do our own research. We can't just buy into what's on TV.
that's
We
key.
can do that. We're going to make a difference in how we deal with things. And that's why we call it the voice of reason.
Hmm, it's true, Len. And hopefully people will make good decisions. And that means you make decisions about your family, about your own personal health, and the way you're going to vote. You know, it's choices you're going to make that I think are going to change the way we move forward. If people really think about this and say, I don't want to be taken for this ride anymore. Now, you might not be able to change the big money manipulation of life. Because again, just like we started this conversation, this has been going on since time immemorial. It's just the nature of things. There's going to be really rich people with agendas. Whether there's a conspiracy behind it, I don't really think so. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm not a good conspiracy theorist, but I know human nature.
Yeah.
And people with power take advantage of situations.
It's all right. We're growing, we're getting stronger, and we're going to change how things are. We're going to build community. We're
I'm
going to have
here.
a reasonable voice on how to handle things. Thanks,
Thank you.
Francesco.
Thanks, Len.